payments despite its chart-topping success. The track, raising over £47,000 for Age UK, has been labelled a victim of two-tier broadcasting, as critics point to past political songs like Stand Down Margaret that were aired without issue. Dean Ager, the singer behind the parody, plans to perform the song at Parliament Square in protest. The BBC insists its decisions reflect what our audience expect to hear, denying claims of bias. And strong winds are continuing causing travel chaos in parts of the UK as millions of people travel ahead of Christmas. The AA predicts 21.3 million drivers will have hit the road today, capping off a weekend of record-breaking traffic. Yellow weather warnings for gales are in place until 9 p.m, and they're adding to the strain, grounding 100 flights at Heathrow and stopping a number of P&O ferry services. The Met Office is warning of continued disruption and even power cuts into this evening. Those are the latest GB News headlines. Now it's time for Free Speech Nation.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Labour breaks a promise to women. Ireland has been called anti-Semitic by the Israeli government, and Britain becomes the Western capital for Sharia courts. This is Free Speech Nation. Welcome to Free Speech Nation with me, Josh Howie. 3.5 years ago, I wasn't sitting here. I was sitting out there at home watching this show. More than that, I needed this show. The world didn't make sense anymore. Everything was upside down, going backwards. Anti-racists were being racist. Women's rights were being eroded, stolen in the name of women. Scientists were anti-science. Gay activists were literally erasing homosexuals. Medical staff were hurting patients. Liberals were illiberal. Anti-fascists were fascist. Progressives were being regressive. Free speech was anything but. It came with a heavy cost. And the genius of Andrew Doyle is, like truly smart people, he was able to cleanly articulate precisely what was going on. The who's and the what's, and particularly the how's, so we could properly understand the encroaching tyranny, what their methods are, and how to have the tools to push back. Be inspired to push back. So that when I found myself filling in an NHS form for my 5-year-old daughter's flu jab and an option for gender was unspecified, I was able to recognise the institutional capture and call it out. I was also chuffed to see that Andrew, someone I only met once or twice in the world of stand-up, was following me on what was then Twitter, and I sent him a message about it. Because that's another thing this show does. It gives people a voice. It provides exposure on telly for those who suddenly found themselves on the wrong side, those whose lives are destroyed, those who want to fight back, those who want the world to make sense again. It provides a platform that should be on other channels, that could be on other channels, that still isn't. A huge amount has changed over the last 3.5 years. Many significant battles have been won, some by people we have on tonight. We are not where we were, and I believe that Andrew Doyle and this show has significantly played a part in that. But we're also not over the finish line yet. Too many people and too many institutions have invested too much of themselves to see that despite good intentions, in fact, they are not making the world better, they are doing the opposite. And that's not to mention the new fronts we don't even know about yet, because there is no finish line. If it's one thing I learned from Andrew, it's that blindly allowing those in authority to meddle with our rights is what's got us to this point where the world became topsy-turvy, where you could lose your job for stating a biological fact. The bravest of us and those with greatest foresight stood up first and often paid a heavy price for it, for our complacency. It's incumbent now on the rest of us to share that burden and be ever vigilant to whatever threatens our liberal democracy, wherever it is. Free Speech Nation at gbnews.co.uk. If you've been affected by, discovered something, or want to expose how your rights are at risk in this free speech nation, then please do not use it. Do use it. They said in my ear, don't use it. Andrew Doyle gave me a voice to many. He gave a voice to me. And I'm going to continue to do the same for you. I should point out that Andrew wrote that. No, he didn't. No. With all that in mind, we still have a show where we take a look at culture, current affairs and politics, and where necessary, we push back. Coming up tonight, why is the government inviting trans people into women-only spaces? I speak to icon and women's rights advocate Maya Forstater. Is Israel closing its embassy in Ireland because of anti-Semitism? We asked Spike's chief political writer, Brendan O'Neill, is Ireland anti-Semitic? And I'll be joined by Imam Dr. Sheikh Ramsey after the week the UK has been dubbed the Western capital of Sharia courts. And of course, myself and my fantastic panel will answering questions from our wonderful studio audience. My comedian guests this evening are Lewis Schaefer and Jojo Sutherland. Welcome, Lewis.
Congratulations.
How are you? Thank you very much. I should say that when Andrew handed over the mantle, he only had one request for me. He just said, "Take care of Lewis."
Please take care of Lewis.
Keep my boy safe. He didn't say anything about you,
no,
Jojo.
I know,
I'm afraid. I'm sorry.
he knows I'm safe.
Yeah, you are safe.
You are safe, exactly.
From you.
But you guys had a nice week?
Lovely week.
It's lovely to see
you
you
know,
again.
that was a really lovely, interesting monologue, and I'll tell you for why. We forget, even though it's only 3.5 years ago, why that all came about and the whole point of this show. And so you stepped into Andrew's shoes, and he was a great advocate for free speech. He took a lot of pelters for it.
Yeah.
And it's easier for you 3.5 years down the line to say what we're saying, but it's very difficult for you to step into Andrew's shoes. So well done.
Thank you. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Thank you. Yeah, it is difficult, but... you know, that someone has to, and that's, I guess, my point is that I don't think the journey's over yet.
No,
I wish it was, because, like you guys, we're three comedians. Our natural state is to be at home scratching our private parts and just watching telly.
Well, our natural state is to sort of hover above it and kind of take everything apart and pick it to pieces. But we've been divided into this, I'm right, I'm wrong, you're right, We've, as comedians, weirdly, we've stopped being... you know, looking funny and looking at all aspects.
Yeah, we've had to get involved. It's anyway. It's going to continue. The journey is continuing. Lewis, you all right, mate?
I'm on my best behaviour.
I can
Please
see
don't.
that.
Stop it.
I
You
can
don't want
see
you on
that.
your best behaviour.
Right. Well, we're going to get some questions from our audience. Our first question's from John. Hey, John.
Hi. Should so-called trans women be allowed into female-only prisons?
Yeah, so this is a trans woman has won her High Court case to be transferred to a female prison in Northern Ireland after facing a charge for threatening to kill their male neighbour. The move happened after the Department of Justice accepted there was a lack of policy in place for transgender prisoners and consented to the transfer. The defendant told police she would stab the neighbour and feel happy about it, which is a very female thing to do. What do you think, John?
Well, I once shared a motel room in California with this young man called Paul.
OK, I'm going to stop you there, John. And, thank you so much for that input.
So he became trans anyway.
No, I'm not. I don't want to hear any more. So,
No, you're not
Free Speech
missing
Nation for everybody but John.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Jojo, I mean, what do you think of this? We can't really talk about the specifics of the case, but what the government is saying, in Northern Ireland, they're saying we don't have anything in place to sort. That's crazy. How are they left behind on this?
Well, this is the problem, isn't it? I mean, I know you sort of referred to so-called trans women. There is a differentiation between so-called trans women and trans women. There is a legitimate people transferring their
people who've
gender.
got the surgery and whatnot.
Dysmorphia and, you know, feel the need to be a woman, and that's absolutely
There are people
fine.
who just like dressing in female clothes.
Yeah, but there's people who have fetishes, and we are creating loopholes through the law for people who are not in any way want to be a woman, but see a loophole. This is where the difficulty lies: is that somebody, legitimate trans woman or so-called trans woman, into a female jail. When you look at the prison population, the male population tends to be violent, tends to be much more aggressive. Female population prison is generally shoplifting, drug addiction, you know. So when you have someone who was previously a male, and whether legitimately or not they've become a female, there is still that element of that person who will always be male. Whether you want to be a woman or whether you feel like a woman, there is a biological testosterone. You can put all the blockers you want. And also living as a male for however long before you transcended to a woman is you are essentially putting someone who's identifying as a woman with a very male background into a woman's population who have been abused, attacked, and are terrified of men.
Yeah, I mean, I thought, Lewis, that this is all sorted out. I mean, we saw what happened in Scotland. Why did Northern Ireland not get their act together?
I guess because it's Northern Ireland. I mean, it's not the most... I don't know whether
they
it's
only
the most...
banned abortion recently, or allowed abortion recently.
Is that not, quote, the most... The point is, if somebody wants to say that they're a woman, they should be allowed... They have the free speech to say that they're a woman. That doesn't mean they should be put into a female prison. I mean, our prison's bad.
But then
I suspect you'll find out one day.
Yeah.
We have to ask, though, once you get into the prison population, how does that work out? I mean, are you in bunk beds with 7 other women? I don't think you are. You're in a cell. What is the actual
obviously
of a trans woman in a...
Well, I know in
prison?
American jails there were... trans women were in general population. And I believe someone got pregnant and there were sexual assaults, and which is why this is a bad...
I don't know how this is coming up. The point is that they're either women or they're not women. They're not women, in my mind. They're not women. So you could say that they're women. They're not women. And they should not want to go to a prison. They've done something wrong and they're being sent to prison.
Well, you can tell that they're not women, Lewis, specifically, because you probably like them.
Well, I was in a hotel room. I was under...
No, I don't want to hear what with... No, we're not going to go there. I don't want to hear this story.
I do think the easiest way to identify, making the decision about putting a trans woman into a woman's prison, the best way to identify whether or not you're a woman is if you still have genitalia that presents as a man.
No, it's not, because...
So if you still got... genitalia that is masculine, there is no way you should be anywhere near...
Some people think that even without genitalia, you're still going to have the strength and whatnot.
And even
I can't believe we're actually talking about this still after 3.5 years. Right, our next question's from Thomas.
Is the new Wicked film too woke?
Is the new Wicked film too woke? The Wicked star Cynthia Erivo has insisted this week that her casting as Elphaba, I think, wasn't a woke hire and has the credentials for the part. This comes after the British Board of Film Classification warned parents that Wicked contains potentially upsetting depictions of discrimination because a green-skinned woman is mocked, bullied and humiliated because of her skin colour. Thomas, welcome, first of all. It just shows how relevant we are. Obviously, we're down with the kids. I didn't know we had such a big following amongst the youth. What do you think? Have you seen Wicked?
Yeah, I have.
What did you think?
To be honest, I didn't really notice. I didn't really, when I was watching it, I didn't think this is quite woke. Yeah, I didn't really notice.
You enjoyed it?
Yeah, I thought it was good.
OK, yeah, I mean, this is the thing, Lewis, is that anything that's actually for children and does have a message to it, they traditionally used to kind of hide that, like, oh, discrimination is bad. And it didn't need a PG rating because it was cleverly put within the context of the story.
Even if it wasn't cleverly put, I remember when I was a kid, there was a movie which had a green man in it. And I'm talking like in the early 1960s. It could have been, And
was it the Hulk?
Incredible Hulk?
No, but why only green if they're going to make something? Is that Ben Shapiro likes it. And I'm not going to go see it, but Ben Shapiro likes it. And if Ben Shapiro likes it, says it's not too woke, then you have to remember is that at least half the population of this country and America believe in that stuff. So you got to make, it might be less, but you got to make movies for these people.
I mean, Jojo, it's been a massive hit. They're talking about awards season for it. I would say that it's not woke. I think part of its success is just like we saw with Inside Out was where they've deliberately they pushed against that. It seems like almost like the stars are the ones who are trying to somehow make it woke during all those interviews, and they're making it all about this this content that isn't necessarily
It's
even
not
there.
there. They're trying to create a narrative that doesn't exist, and sort of, oh, but I bully because I'm green. It's not. It's if anyone's different. If somebody was sitting here purple, we'd all be looking at them. Do you know what I mean? It's that thing of just going, yeah, there's a difference. I don't understand this idea that why is she so desperate to say it wasn't a diversity? I got the job because I was a good actor. Good. That's why you should get a job. That's why you get a job, because you're the most qualified, you're the best for that job. If you are so busy saying, I'm not because, well, you don't believe in yourself, you think that you got the job.
No, this doesn't have anything to do with that.
Yes, it does.
The fact is that there is DEI hires. There are people being hired for, and the world we are in, people are saying, oh, she's been hired for this reason. I don't think she's making this up herself. From what I've heard, she's very good in this, right?
But that's the point. She was a good actress, so she got hired on credit.
But the greatest comedians are filled with self-doubt.
Yeah,
not all of us, darling.
Yeah, well, this one is.
OK, our next question's from John. Different John. Hey, John.
Good evening, good evening. It's great to see you in the anchor position, Josh.
Thank you, and thanks for turning. Thank you guys for turning up, by the way. I really appreciate that.
My question, I don't think it's ever been asked before on this programme. It's a classical question.
OK.
Should classics still be taught in schools?
Yes, OK, this is because Latin, right? This is about Latin. State school students due to take their Latin GCSEs in the summer face significant disruption as the government pulls funding for teachers and trips as it seeks to plug its fiscal black hole. Yeah, what, did you learn Latin at school?
I learned Latin in school, and it's incredibly useful if you're bumping into ancient Romans in the street.
Latin is the basis for most language, though. That is the root cause
of... It gives you a really good insight into European languages.
Yeah.
And it needs to be sold to school children, but it should be an option, I would think.
Yeah, well, this is, Jojo, that was exactly this. It was, I believe, a £4 million policy that was brought in under the last government, the idea being to sell it particularly to state schools. That was, and also I believe a third of it's 5,000 students, and a third of them are on free school meals. So the point was to make classics accessible, and are they closing the door on that?
How beneficial is it to teach Latin? And I do think it.
Well, John, how wealthy are you?
I learnt Latin, but I went to a private school when we were temporarily rich, and then I went to a state school. Latin was nowhere near it. And my children went to school, and German was then taken off the curriculum. So that's a recent thing in Scottish schools, that there's no German being taught, it's just French and Spanish. But I do think, weirdly, language is the benefit of public school, and language is also taught much earlier in private school than it is in primary school in state schools.
And it's been proven that actually affects children's brains, that they have elastic brains if they learn from sort of 4 years old.
But I don't know why state schools are not taught foreign languages at an earlier stage.
I'm assuming
when their brains are real sponges.
Funding would be... and Lewis, what do you think? I mean, America, do you have foreign languages?
We do have foreign languages, and they're under the control of the local government, which is maybe even too large. People should be allowed to control their own education. If they want to... I learned Latin for 4 years or something in New York, and I think it's incredible. But it shouldn't be up to the state. That's the problem with this country, is like all the money comes from this state, the big government up there, and they're saying we're going to have it or we're not going to have it. I think they've got to privatize schools, let people stop having the state educate them.
Yeah, but then we'd have to pay for it.
Yeah, we pay for it because we'd have more money. Right now, the government of this country is taking like 45, 55, 60% of all the money that's out there.
But it's not like they'd lower taxes to allow us to pay for this.
Then we have a revolution. We force them to lower taxes.
I had a paid-for education. I got 67% in my Latin exam, and all I remember is a moa masamat. So, I mean, I'm not a good example.
There we go. Well, good luck to them. I'm sorry that they've been so
But you take a look at someone like Jojo. You do come across as a very intelligent person. This guy over there comes across as a very intelligent person. The person he's sitting next to doesn't.
Oh, my God. We're heckling now.
So if you let the parents decide what is the most important things, they're obviously much closer to the ground and make their own decisions and pay the price if their decision's wrong. But this country is everything about big government. And it's like some Chinese It's like China in the 1860s or something.
I'm going to argue with you, Lewis. Why would
Okay,
every government not be able to just go for health, education and housing?
Because they should not be in control of our schools.
You two can continue this discussion. Next on Free Speech Nation, though, Ireland's embassy in Israel is to be closed down after being accused of peddling extreme anti-Israel policies. I might have an opinion on this. Find out in 2.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news,
Will, please bring us up to date.
or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons,
Very, very curious.
we bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial. And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born. It's everything you need to kickstart your evening. Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it. That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Recruiters are warning that if you're not tech savvy, you could be missing out with your CV failing to make it through an AI-powered sifting process. So we've gone from sort of computer says no HR people ticking boxes to AI, right? Is that right?
Yes, well, this applies once you're in the job as well, as a recent report revealed that employees expect AI will manage an average of a third of their tasks within the next 12 months. Well, joining us now to discuss this is Cosmo Curry, founder of Van Kaizen, a leading company in technology recruitment.
Morning, Cosmo.
Morning.
Good morning. Well, yeah, thank you
for
for joining us. It's very interesting, isn't it? Because AI is, of course, on the rise, and now in the workplace and in universities and things. Another article came to mind. There was a student recently, I think it was in the news just the other day, that got in trouble for using AI. So there's, you know, for exam purposes and essays. So there's lots of different ways that it can be a good thing and a bad thing. But you're, of course, here to talk about the ways in which AI is a good thing within the workplace.
Absolutely. I mean, AI is here to stay, for sure. And we're seeing this rise of people using it in such a clever format. The other side of it is also we're seeing people who are using it and during the process of that, they are losing their character. We're losing the actual insight into the individual behind that. And so we've kind of got this kind of mix. And I think AI is phenomenal when you're looking at it from a point of view of optimization, point of view of speed, getting results. But I think we have to remember that, you know, the fundamental of recruitment is people. And we cannot substitute the people, the personal aspect, by replacing that with AI.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Welcome back to Free Speech Nation. Israel is set to close its Dublin embassy after accusing Ireland's government of peddling extreme anti-Israel policies. The Irish government were reprimanded for its recognition of the Palestinian state and support for international legal action against Israel's war in Gaza. So this is a tricky thing that's kind of been kicking off this week. Did you see any of this stuff online, Jojo? You might have seen me going mental.
Oh, yeah, no, I keep a good eye on you going mental. Yeah, so Israel, so the Ireland government is now... Yes, it's...
Well, basically what happened was the Irish government put out a letter to the ICJ basically saying a genocide isn't happening, but let's change the meaning of genocide.
Yeah, but there was also a contradiction to it in terms of another policy somewhere else about...
Yeah, well, exactly. Then they said, oh, no, we're not anti-Semitic. Actually, we just follow international justice. And then it turns out they haven't done anything about Sudan and Syria and various other places.
So where they're putting their head above the parapet in this case, they have done nothing in relation to other alleged atrocities, so it's a bit hypocritical.
Exactly. Have you been following this, Lewis?
It's the same old story, where, of course, it's the world's been divided into people who care about the place that they're living in and the people who care about greater political issues around the world,
which has got nothing to do with them. Yeah, exactly right.
Which is what the story is.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, joining me to discuss this is chief political writer at Spiked, Brendan O'Neill. Brendan, welcome. You wrote about this week. I assume that you've seen what's going on. What is your feeling? Do you think the distinction you make is obviously between the Irish government and the Irish people?
Yeah, the Irish government has behaved terribly in relation to Israel. It's behaved hypocritically with double standards. It has demonized Israel to an extraordinary degree. I think Israel was absolutely right to close its embassy in Dublin. You know, how much can a small nation take in terms of abuse and demonization and so on? You know, I think there are two things that really make it clear that the Irish elites are anti-Israel. The first is that they are obsessed with Israel to a bizarre degree. You know, this is a government that sucks up to the Saudi regime, gets loads of investment from China, so it obviously doesn't give a damn about human rights as it claims to. And then also there is the fact that Ireland went to the ICJ, as you were just saying, and essentially said, look, we need to change the definition of genocide in order that we might stitch up Israel, in order that we might finally find Israel guilty of this crime against humanity. This was a call to change the meaning of words themselves, to change the law itself in order that Israel might be retrospectively criminalized. That's not how justice is supposed to work. That's not how supposed allies are supposed to treat one another. So I think Israel felt like Ireland stabbed it in the back, and it was right to leave.
Do you think that the rot goes any deeper than that? There was a book that was highlighted this week, a school book, where Auschwitz was described as a POW camp.
Yeah, there is a problem more broadly in Ireland, I think. I think it's worse amongst the kind of chattering classes, particularly in Dublin. Anyone who goes to Dublin, I go to Ireland all the time. That's where my family is from. Anyone who goes to Dublin, you will hear anti-Israel invective all the time, in all the wine bars, amongst the newspaper columnists, in polite society. There is a visceral hatred for the Jewish nation amongst a certain section of Irish society. But it does go a little bit deeper too. I do think there is a problem with anti-Semitism in a pretty wide constituency in Ireland. You know, one thing that really strikes me is that it's very fashionable these days to admit that your nation has a problem with racism. So it's very fashionable in the UK and in Ireland to say, we've got a problem with anti-black racism, we've got a problem with Islamophobia, we need all these think tanks and government initiatives to try and tackle these problems of prejudice. But as soon as you say, well, maybe there's a problem with anti-Semitism too, they get incredibly defensive. They say, no, 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 we have no problem with anti-Semitism whatsoever. So they're very willing to confess to other forms of racism, but when it comes to this one form of racism, they get defensive, their backs go up, they say, no, nothing to do with us. I think that defensiveness springs from the fact that they know there's an element of truth in this. I think there are people in Ireland who know that their obsession with the world's only Jewish nation cannot be explained in terms of normal politics and actually springs from a well of bigotry.
Yeah, and possibly ignorance. A lot of what I've seen online is people saying, oh, we know what it's like to be colonised, so we can recognise a colonised state, when, of course, the facts are Israel is the greatest decolonisation project in history.
Absolutely. And when Ireland was a more sensible country back in the early 20th century, it understood very well that the creation of the modern state of Israel had a lot in common with the creation of modern Ireland. Both of these were anti-colonial projects. Both of these are countries that were born from anti-colonial uprisings. And in fact, if you look at some of the revolutionary Jews who helped to found the modern state of Israel, they were incredibly inspired by the Irish uprising of the 1910s and the 1920s. In fact, one of the leading Jews in that fight to establish Israel, his code name was Michael, after Michael Collins, the leader of the Irish uprising against the British. So there used to be these very close connections between Ireland and Israel. Both were countries that established themselves by pushing back against the British Empire. But somehow Ireland has lost the plot. It's embraced the politics of identity, the politics of victimhood, and now it aligns itself more with the Palestinian cause, the so-called Palestinian cause, and even with Hamas, more than it does with the Jewish nation. And I find that incredibly worrying.
It is. And just finally, very quickly, but do you think this is going to have an impact on Ireland closing down the embassy?
I think it is going to have an impact. You know, it's getting a lot of love and support online from crazy people who hate Israel, and I'm sure it's loving all of that. But internationally, in terms of the global order, I think Ireland will suffer. It's going to lose its connections with America unless it sorts this problem out. It's going to become a bit of an outlier in the European Union. I think it's a litmus test of how civilized a nation you are by where you stand in the post-7th of October world. Do you stand with the racist militants who attacked the Jews of southern Israel, or do you stand with Israel? At the moment, Ireland is failing that moral test, and I think it needs to get its act together.
Absolutely. Well, Brendan and O'Neill, thank you so much. And by the way, if anybody wants a nice little stocking filler, I could recommend after the pogrom. It's a really good read. Maybe not for Christmas morning, but it is an excellent book and needs to be read. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, John.
During the Advent, as we count down to Christmas Day, we are hearing from church ministers across the country. Each day they have a special message for you to celebrate the festive season.
The GB News Advent Calendar. Day 22.
Hi, I'm Chris Tufnell. I'm the vicar of Uterbridge Parish Church near Sheffield. At the end of the month, Buckingham Palace is going to publish the King's New Year Honours List. To get on that list, you have to do something really extraordinary, and it's often the result of a lifetime of work and achievement. Contrast that with how we'll honour each other on Christmas Day with the giving of presents, given not as a reward, but simply out of love. That second kind of honouring is what Christmas is all about. Jesus is the King who came at Christmas, not to honour extraordinary people for a lifetime of outstanding service, but to honour ordinary people, carpenters like Joseph, scared new mums like Mary, people working night shifts to try and make ends meet like the shepherds. He came to honour people like you and me. The Bible says, to those who did receive him, to those who believed in his name, he gave the right to become children of God. That is the highest of honours, and it's on offer to you. Happy Christmas.
I want that jumper. Or you can see all of our special Advent messages as Christmas approaches by visiting gbnews.com/Advent. Next on Free Speech Nation, the government has quietly broken its promise to women on single-sex spaces. Maya Forstater is joining us to make sure it's not quiet anymore. See you in 2.
Hello, here's your latest weather update from the Met Office for GB News. As we go through the Christmas period, we'll see much milder weather affecting the UK. A lot of cloud around at times, giving outbreaks of rain, mainly towards the northwest, elsewhere largely dry. At the moment, we've got a chilly north to northwesterly airstream affecting the UK, tightly packed isobars, low pressure anchored there towards the northeast of the UK. And as we head for the evening and through the overnight period, we hold on to brisk winds, a gusty north to northwesterly airstream feeding further showers in from the northwest. The showers are a little bit wintry at times across the high ground in Scotland, with the best of the clear spells developing towards the south and east of the UK. And wherever you are, quite a chilly night. Temperatures down into mid to low single figures, perhaps locally dipping down to around freezing, giving a patchy frost in places, and the odd icy patch towards the northeast of the UK as well. As for Monday, well, we start the day with further wintry showers towards the northeast. The showers mainly wintry on the high ground in Scotland. Elsewhere across the country, some sunshine, with rain approaching the west coast there first thing on Monday. Outbreaks of rain also reaching much of Northern Ireland, but notice temperatures here a little bit milder than of late. And 1 or 2 showers across Wales, the far southwest of England, but elsewhere across the south and east of the UK, it's a fine, fairly chilly start. Fairly clear skies too, with plenty of sunshine developing as we go through the morning, and we hold on to lots of sunshine across those southern and eastern spots through the day on Monday, with cloudier skies, outbreaks of rain working their way in across many northern and western areas, a few heavy bursts of rain across Northern Ireland during the morning, pushing in across Irish Sea areas into the afternoon. And it's only quite breezy once again after those winds have eased during the first part of Monday. Quite chilly towards the south and east at 5 or 6 degrees, but starting to turn milder out towards the west and northwest. As we head into Christmas Eve, and much milder days on the cards across the UK. A lot of cloud around, turning breezy at times, some rain too, mainly towards the northwest, elsewhere mostly dry, some hill fog in places, but notice much milder temperatures than we've seen in recent days, temperatures into double figures, and we hold on to rather cloudy but very mild conditions going through the rest of the Christmas period, with temperatures up to around 12 or 13 degrees.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Free Speech Nation. Later on the show, I'll be turning agony uncle with the help of my panel Lewis Schaefer and Jojo Sutherland to help you deal with your unfiltered dilemmas. Message us at gbnews.com/yoursay and we'll help you solve your issues. So, the government has said transgender women can use some single-sex spaces intended for females. Sir Keir Starmer previously said it was very important to protect female-only spaces in a debate with Rishi Sunak during the general election campaign. Labour has now been accused of breaking that pledge after releasing a response on a consultation which confirmed that public and private bodies can write policies that allow transgender women into female-only places. I'm joined now by co-founder and executive director of Sex Matters, Maya Forstater. Welcome! What a guest, our first in-studio guest. Maya, before we get into this topic, which is very important, of course, earlier this week, J.K. Rowling, she pointed out it's been 5 years since her infamous tweet, if we can just put it up now, and at the bottom you will notice there's a hashtag which says, I stand with Maya. That's you. She was inspired by your fight. I'd mentioned at the beginning of this show how it's kind of on the backs of other people that we are here today. Can you believe what's happened in the last 5 years?
I couldn't have guessed it 5 years ago. She tweeted the day after I lost my employment tribunal. So a judge had said that the belief that sex is real was not worthy of respect in a democratic society. I'd lost. And then the next day, J.K. Rowling tweeted and my case got spread all over the world, and it took 4 years altogether, and I won. And it means that people are protected against discrimination. And that day, J.K. Rowling tweeted, I had no idea whether she'd carry on. Would it be one tweet, or would she carry on? And she's carried on for 5 years. She stood by us. She stood up for us, and it's made it safer for people to talk about this. And the progress that's been made because of that, you know, the Cass review this year, the ban on puberty blockers, things that were dangerous to say are now being said in Parliament, they're being said in government, and they're making change. So I'll always be grateful for J.K. Rowling for stepping in that day.
I'll be grateful to you, and I don't know if the younger generation appreciate, but it was like 5 years ago, you couldn't say stuff. It was genuinely like, if I say there's two sexes, I could lose my job. It was crazy, and this woman is the person who changed all of that. So thank you. A big round of applause, please, from our audience, because none of it would have happened without you. So I just want to say thank you, because where we are now and it's not just here. It's, you know, now America's going in on this, and it's all changing everywhere. So thank you. Let's get back. Of course, as I said in the intro, the fight does not end, and it's continuing even into this week. What's happened?
I hope this is a bump in the road. So this was a consultation that was started by the previous government and then was picked up. The results of it were picked up by this government. The previous government had asked people to send in examples of bad guidance. So guidance to public bodies, guidance to gyms and pubs, and, you know, all kinds of businesses and public bodies that are providing everyday single-sex services or specific single-sex services like women's refuges. And people are concerned that the guidance is not clear. It says you can provide a single-sex service, but you can also allow in people of the opposite sex based on their gender identity. And it's just impossible. Either you let in men or you don't. And if you let in men to a woman's service, whatever their pronouns are, whatever they're wearing, then it's not single sex. And the government received about 400 responses. So people sent in guidance from their local council, from businesses and so on. And this week they said they thought only 10% of them were unlawful. So basically they thought that only if the guidance said the Equality Act mandates that you allow men who identify as women into women's spaces, that's unlawful. But if the guidance is just confusing or overcomplicated, well, that's okay, basically.
So this is Labour trying to fudge it, basically, which is kind of what they've done all along. Now, I, admittedly, naively, thought at some point people seem to be getting it, and certainly Wes Streeting seems to understand these issues at stake here. But is there what can the government do? Are they showing now their just unwillingness to sort this out?
I think there's a bit of sort of not invented here. It wasn't their consultation, but now they are the government, and it's their job to fix this. And I think they've done a misstep here. They've lost women's trust after saying during the election that they understood what a single-sex service means and that they were going to protect single-sex services. They've now said, we don't see a problem here. I think they're going to have to make a step on their own account to say, when they say they're protecting single-sex services, do they understand what that means? Does that mean single-sex or does it mean gender identity? Otherwise, we're going to end up in court. And we'll end up in court with individual businesses, with individual local authorities, or with the government. It's time for them to take leadership.
Yeah, well, it's very disappointing that we are still fighting this very seemingly simple battles. There's a few other things that have happened. One is any update with the Supreme Court? Definite. What is a woman? I don't know. I know. None of us know until the new year. So this was heard at the end of November. This question about what is the definition of woman in the Equality Act, and we'll hear back sometime in the spring. It will be big either way. If they say that sex in the Equality Act means the ordinary meaning of sex, then all of these examples of bad guidance and bad policies will need to be reviewed. If, on the other hand, they come back and say sex in the law means a piece of paper that's secret, that doesn't relate to your anatomy, that you don't need to have had any surgery to get, then it really becomes impossible to operate a single-sex service. Either way, it's going to go back to the government to sort out the policies. Stakes still incredibly high and all to fight for.
Yes,
Which you do with your organisation.
Yes,
you want to do a quick one for that so people can support it.
So, one of the big things that, from my point of view, happened over the last 5 years is after I lost, we set up Sex Matters organisation campaigning for clarity on sex in law and policy in the UK, and we've brought 100,000 people to sign a petition, had a debate in Westminster Hall in Parliament. We got this to be an issue during the election, and we're now challenging the British Transport Police. So we would like to sue them for their policy on searching, which is that, so the law protects people when they're being searched by the police. You have to be searched by a member of the same sex. But they say that means that a male police officer with a gender recognition certificate can strip search female detainees. We think that's a breach of human rights.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for continuing the fight, and have a lovely Christmas, and thank you for joining us in the studio. Maya Forster to everybody. Next on Free Speech Nation, Britain has become the Western capital for Sharia. I'll be debating that with an imam in a few minutes. See you there.
Can't wait to get in that sea.
Lovely and warm.
Just like the feeling of having great travel insurance.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Hello there, welcome to your latest Winter Sun forecast. If you're travelling over the Christmas period, it's certainly going to remain unsettled for central parts of the Mediterranean. There's an area of low pressure brings some strong winds, some heavy rain and also some snow to the higher levels. Something a little bit quieter for parts of Iberia, plenty of sunshine to be had here, but then down towards the Canaries, still the risk of some showers, although it will improve here as we approach Christmas Day itself. Temperatures in Madeira reaching around 20 degrees on Christmas Day.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
I'm Stephen Dixon, and thanks for joining us on GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Joined by international life coach Cheryl Findlay, who has joined forces with a Liverpool business owner, Kate Hill, of sustainable sportswear brand Lola Star, to empower women and inspire women across the nation. And to celebrate this partnership with the new Lola Star collection, the two will be hosting an exclusive event next Saturday.
The sportswear brand was launched after, well, your story. You lost how much weight?
So 16 stone, which is over £220, which
wow.
I know is quite significant. But during that kind of decade-long journey, I learned a lot about myself. And I learned a lot about what it takes to be successful, to be happy, to be well, and to just live an incredible life every day.
Are you giving them goals to work towards or helping them structure their life?
Yeah, so I don't give out goals, absolutely not. It's all about whatever an individual wants. So what we do to begin with is we understand, like, where are you now? Where are you thriving? Where do you feel really happy and excited in your life? And what's lacking? Like, where would you like to feel better? Where would you like to improve? And then we take it from there.
I'd love to take that on board. I'd love to be my true self and fulfil my potential. So have you got any practical tips on how to do that?
Yeah, so we start with clarity, right? Like, you need to know, it's such a busy, fast-paced world we live in. There's so much sensory overload. You know, it'd be so easy to be distracted. So we need to kind of quiet all that noise down and start with, where do I want to focus? Pick 2 or 3 things. Where do I want to focus? And then we define the goal. What would I like that area of my life to look, not just look like, but feel like? And then we take it from there. So that's where you would start. I actually had a cancer diagnosis in 2019.
Oh.
And I just decided if I was going to be lucky enough to be on the other side of it, I wasn't going to play small anymore.
GB News, the people's...
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
I'm Ellie Costello, and thank you so much for joining us here on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Free Speech Nation. Britain has emerged as the so-called Western capital for Sharia courts, with 85 of them now operating throughout the UK. These Islamic councils, which are becoming increasingly influential, typically consist of panels of Islamic scholars who issue religious rulings on matters such as marriage and divorce. But are they compatible with British values? Joining me now is Dr. Sheikh Ramzi, Imam and Director of the Oxford Islamic Information Centre. Welcome.
Good
Hello.
Evening. Good evening. Welcome.
So I guess my first question is, why are there so many?
Of course, there are not so many. God bless you for saying that.
Well, there's more than the rest of Europe.
Yes, we have so many sects and so many different school of thought, which they are going. For example, if I say Pakistani follow their kind of Islamic jurisprudence, and as Arab goes follows something the other countries, Somalia or so going follow. For that reason, they have their own. For example, the court of they do for all, of course, Islamic, but usually they are more comfortable. For example, the African goes to African court. That's why we have so many. It is not so many, you believe me, because it is a 4.5 million, more or less, Muslim in these countries, and few of them, and these are of course necessary for the well-being of the Muslim. Is not a
okay. Sorry, just sorry to stop you. Because we've only got a few minutes, so I do want to cover this. But what exactly do these courts then do for the Muslim population?
Well,
that
for
they
the
can't
Muslim,
do in other courts?
Yeah, for the well-being, they decide. Some scholars decide for the well-being of the people. For example, if they want to get a mortgage, they give us some kind of opinion. If they want to, somebody want to make sell alcohol, they give, for example, opinion. Somebody want to get married, they give opinion. Somebody want a divorce. Especially in divorce is a very, very difficult. But Sharia or Islamic court is necessary to be there to protect the woman's right.
Okay, but this is the problem, is that people are saying that actually these courts might supersede UK courts because there are a lot of people who aren't being married.
I don't believe supersede UK because these laws, by all respect, these laws are for the Muslim. The Jewish people have got exactly the same court, more or less. The Hindus, the Christian God, when they get married, they get divorced, they go and they have kind of court. And of course, we have a whole court for UK, but these are the small things which...
But there are British Muslims who are getting married in Sharia court and not in the UK system.
A UK system doesn't understand, for example, what for example the Quranic, because they don't go follow the Quranic or our book way. Therefore, they have to sort out if there is, for example, with the court is deal with general, with all the general. Doesn't matter who is a Christian, Muslim, Hindus or what.
I understand that, but the issue
that.
Is, of course, that this is a country with its own laws, and if there are things like bigamy, there are things like bigamy happening, which is against the law in the UK.
There is no bigamy happening if the Islamics they are accepting. If, for example, a person coming with a two wife from Saudi Arabia, the government allow him to come here. These are the law which they have. Islamic law.
Say different. We're going to have to cut you. Sorry, we have to go break. But thank you so much for joining us. I really
God bless
appreciate
you. Thank you very much, and peace to all. Peace to all.
Take care. Bye. Thank you very much.
Have a good Christmas.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, here's your latest weather update from the Met Office for GB News. As we go through the Christmas period, we'll see much milder weather affecting the UK. A lot of cloud around at times, giving outbreaks of rain, mainly towards the northwest, elsewhere largely dry. At the moment, we've got a chilly north to northwesterly airstream affecting the UK, tightly packed isobars, low pressure anchored there towards the northeast of the UK. And as we head for the evening and through the overnight period, we hold on to brisk winds, a gusty north to northwesterly airstream feeding further showers in from the northwest. The showers are a little bit wintry at times across the high ground in Scotland, with the best of the clear spells developing towards the south and east of the UK. And wherever you are, quite a chilly night. Temperatures down into mid to low single figures, perhaps locally dipping down to around freezing, giving a patchy frost in places, and the odd icy patch towards the northeast of the UK as well. As for Monday, well, we start the day with further wintry showers towards the northeast. The showers mainly wintry on the high ground in Scotland. Elsewhere across the country, some sunshine, with rain approaching the west coast there first thing on Monday. Outbreaks of rain also reaching much of Northern Ireland, but notice temperatures here a little bit milder than of late. And one or two showers across Wales, the far southwest of England, but elsewhere across the south and east of the UK, it's a fine, fairly chilly start. Fairly clear skies too, with plenty of sunshine developing as we go through the morning, and we hold on to lots of sunshine across those southern and eastern spots through the day on Monday, with cloudier skies, outbreaks of rain working their way in across many northern and western areas, a few heavy bursts of rain across Northern Ireland during the morning, pushing in across Irish Sea areas into the afternoon, and only quite breezy once again after those winds have eased during the first part of Monday. Quite chilly towards the south and east at 5 or 6 degrees, but starting to turn milder out towards the west and northwest. As we head into Christmas Eve, and much milder days on the cards across the UK. A lot of cloud around, turning breezy at times. Some rain too, mainly towards the northwest, elsewhere mostly dry, some hill fog in places. But notice much milder temperatures than we've seen in recent days, temperatures into double figures. And we hold on to rather cloudy but very mild conditions going through the rest of the Christmas period, with temperatures up to around 12 or 13 degrees.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Imagine getting a call to tell you that you've won £50,000 in tax-free cash, our biggest cash prize of the year.
Oh my God.
That's a big surprise.
Oh my God. This is amazing.
I'm in shock.
I'd say don't hesitate. Do it.
For another chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. You can call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge. Or post your name and number to GB10 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 31st of January. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Britain's newsroom. Weekday mornings from 9:30.
A Tesco store on a Scottish island has defied locals by ignoring pleas to stay closed on Sundays.
Tesco's has said that no member of staff in Stornoway would be forced to work on a Sunday and that it had received a significant amount of positive reaction to its plans.
Well, let's talk now to the Minister of the Reformed Presbyterian Church, Reverend Kenneth Stewart. Good morning to you, Reverend Stewart. You're trying to keep Sunday special, and if Tesco are going to open up, that means it won't be quite as special for you.
Well, yes, good morning, and thanks for having me on. Yes, Tesco, for some reason, they claim it's not economic advantage, but for some reason they've decided to go against hundreds of years of tradition on this island and the deeply held religious convictions of many, many people, including, of course, their own customers who are really grieved by this decision. We come obviously from the standpoint that a day of rest is effectively mandatory. It's a human right, along with the other 10 commandments which have undergirded our moral and legal fabric in society. It actually enshrines the human right to a day of rest. And of course, in the UK, that's been eroded for many, many years. Incidentally, it's still far more respected on the continent. But for us here, the Sabbath or the day of rest has been very, very important. It's not just what we do, it's who we are. And for some reason, Tesco have decided just to go against that.
And Reverend Stewart, we were actually talking about this earlier, how in European countries, I mean, even in France, which is a secular country, still very few shops will open on a Sunday.
GB News, the People's Channel.
There's plenty more still to come on Free Speech Nation this week, but first let's get a news update from Sophia Wensler.
Good evening, it's just gone 8 o'clock. These are your headlines. Tributes have been paid to 9-year-old Andre Gleisner, who was killed in the German Christmas market attack on Friday evening. In a tribute on social media, his mother, Desiree Gleisner, called him "my little teddy bear" and said he would always live in our hearts. The attack left 5 people dead and over 200 injured after a driver used an emergency vehicle lane to plough into the Christmas market in Magdeburg. German authorities are coming under fire after warnings about the suspect were received last year but deemed unspecific. Chancellor Olaf Scholz and ministers faced angry hecklers during a visit to the site as questions mount over security and how the attack could happen. Social media giant X, owned by Elon Musk, is also being scrutinised for failing to act on the suspect's threatening posts before the attack. Security has been ramped up across Germany and the rest of Europe, with armed police patrolling festive events and Christmas markets. In other news, Labour's Lucy Powell has admitted the economy is disappointing, likening the government's efforts to turning around a huge oil tanker. She says Labour inherited unprecedented challenges, including falling living standards and underfunded public services. It comes after the Office for National Statistics reported the economy shrank by 0.1% in September and October, with no growth expected this quarter. Yvette Cooper has been attacked by an angry voter who branded her two-faced for handing out mince pies while pensioners are freezing to death.
That is so two-faced, getting a mince pie out. Yeah. It's one tradition. No. Give him a blanket, because they're freezing to death. They're freezing about.
The Home Secretary was told she would be better off donating blankets to elderly people while dishing out the treats during a visit to West Yorkshire. In the confrontation captured on camera and shared on social media, the voter tells Ms Cooper she should heat the mince pies up to keep freezing pensioners warm after Labour cut their winter fuel payments. And strong winds are continuing causing travel chaos in parts of the UK as millions of people travel ahead of Christmas. The AA predicts 21.3 million drivers will hit the road today, capping off a weekend of record-breaking traffic. Yellow weather warnings for gales are in place until 9 p.m, adding to the strain, grounding 100 flights at Heathrow and stopping a number of P&O ferry services. The Met Office is warning of continued disruption and even power cuts into the evening. Meanwhile, emergency services have rushed to Belfast City Airport this evening after a plane crash. It landed on the runway as Britain continues to be battered by 82-mile-per-hour winds. The airport's runway was closed this afternoon after an Aer Lingus plane suffered an emergency incident while performing a hard landing during the stormy weather. No one is known to have been hurt. Those are the latest GB News headlines. More in an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Welcome back to Free Speech Nation. Now, we had to cut to the break earlier. Thank you very much for the Imam for coming on. But, Jojo, you had a particularly strong reaction to something he said, yes?
I might see this back and have misheard him, but I think he says something about the protection of women, that's why Sharia law exists and Sharia courts. Not entirely sure, but pretty confident that most of the evidence in terms of protection of women within an Islam society, generally speaking, quite good. But when we know for a fact, because we have the data, that female genital mutilation costs the NHS $100 million a year, when we know that a law has been passed in Afghanistan where not only is the burqa now mandatory, but the women are not allowed to speak to other women, when we know that education has been denied across Muslim society, how dare somebody tell me that they're protecting women? There is no protection of women within that society. We are being gaslit by a religious ideology that, frankly, we should all be rioting in the streets. We should know the name of Giselle Pellicott, who's been raped.
But that's got nothing to do with what's happened between, Sharia courts in the UK.
No, but the Sharia courts, why... 85 is the estimate, isn't it? Why have we got Sharia courts when we have a perfectly good legal system in this country to protect men and women, children?
This is the point that I was trying to make, Lewis, exactly this, is that there seem to be cases of bigamy and people not getting married.
We're trying to put through a court in the House of Commons to allow cousin marriage. Are we losing our minds?
Well,
are we losing our minds? Come on, people.
Lewis, you've lost your mind. Tell us about it.
Well, the fact is that,
you know, a lot of women living in Muslim countries actually feel that it's a better system for them. But that's not the issue. The issue is these are not state-funded courts. They take no precedent.
Well, they have charity status.
They have charity status, but they're not enforceable by the state unless people agree to it. It's don't argue.
No, I'm saying, but the point is, it's not about being enforceable. If it exists outside of the state, that's issue number one. The other issue, unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to, is actually where Sharia law supersedes the state, and there is a High Court case where they actually brought Sharia law into
But we've got Sharia law in a country that we live in. 85. We don't know that for sure. The government, if you go on the government database, they don't know how many Sharia courts there are.
It is not
we don't
in this
know.
country. It is not Sharia law. It is not a law because it's not passed by the, you know, the.
Well, it is within the Muslim community. Within
the Muslim community. And it's similar to how there's arbitration in businesses, as people say, instead of going to the state-run court, you go to an.
So in the same way that you can't decide if you shoot a farmer shoots somebody who's an intruder, the Sharia courts decide whether or not a woman should be.
Guys, we're going to move on now. I will say, in fairness, there's also Beth Din. There are Jewish courts that deal with similar issues. This is a very interesting topic. I'd like to come back to it.
But it does not take precedent over.
That's the point. Is that in this one case, they did. We're going to get some questions from the audience. Our first question is from Gaban. Please don't ask about Sharia courts.
They don't protect women, let's just say.
Right, good evening. Now, before I get to my question, I just want to say a happy Christmas and a happy New Year. And for any Jewish viewers, also a happy Hanukkah as well.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Thank you. Happy Hanukkah. Right. Merry Christmas to you.
Thank you. Now, my question is the BBC obsessed with Drag Act?
Yes. So why are the BBC obsessed with drag acts? Yes. So this is the BBC released a report this week about drag queens who ran a fundraiser for a church, but failed to highlight the numerous other groups raising money for their local churches. This is Jojo. It's become a bit of a joke now online because it's like every opportunity that they have to bring in drag queens, the BBC do.
Yeah. And it's that thing, a mutual friend and a friend of the show, Bruce Devlin, that was replaced as a warm-up act for a drag queen. It's that thing of just going, he was better talented to do it, but it's this thing of going, oh, well, we need to have a drag queen to do everything because it seems to cover all bases. But it's this incessant need to be seen to be doing what people think they should be doing in order to satisfy people who all go, I wish you wouldn't do that.
Well, I mean, it's bizarre that the BBC have just fixated on drag queens and stuff. Well, why are they not covering any of these other stories?
Well,
people raising money for their churches.
Look at what we do here at GB News. We're obsessed with that. The fact is
that's the name of the show, Drag Queen Story Free Speech Nation.
Yeah. Well, the truth is that drag queens are funny. It's guys dressing up as women is funny. It's very visual. It's called TV for a reason. Yeah. It's very visual, so people like that. It's also one of those test questions. If you're in favor of this, you're probably going to be on our side. So if you don't like drag queens, then maybe we can't trust you in other ways. We're at the precipice, not the precipice. This is going to be a major change, and people are going to wake up and say we don't like.
I love a drag queen. I have to say I love a drag queen, but
don't
a drag
point
queen,
at me.
A drag queen is very much. I know very many.
I used to MC drag queen.
I know a lot of drag queens, and when they're in drag, they are a woman.
They're amazing.
But then they take their wig off, they take their makeup off, and then they're bloke.
They are not a woman. They're acting.
No, but they're acting as a woman. That's my point. It's always been. That's where we seem to have got to now. Is that drag queens now apparently are trans women? It's nonsense.
I have no problem with this story, by the way. In terms of it's just the BBC's incessant use of it, and of course. Brilliant, raise money for your church. I do have a slight issue that some of the ways that these shows were advertised within the church were ridiculous.
I have a problem.
Anyway,
I have a problem with it, Josh.
Good, but we're going to hear about it.
And most people do that. We've got to pay. We've got to pay £159 for the BBC and it's like we're paying to be propagandized.
67, I think now. Our question is coming from Steve now. Hey, Steve. Hey, you were stuck in the drag queen.
Yeah, I was just looking. Look, Louis got his flight.
He'd look great in a pair of high. He would look great in high heels and a mini skirt, Louis. Go on.
What was I going to ask that? Yeah, just lately we seem to be having diversity days, inclusion months on so many woke subjects. Who pays for all of this, and why is it?
Well, it doesn't seem lately, is it? Yes. So, Trans Parent Day, I believe, and Gender Fluid Appreciation. These are some of the hundreds of awareness days, weeks and months to be marked by NHS staff in 2025. I really thought, Jojo, this stuff was on the outs.
Interestingly, when we're talking about diversity and inclusion, and we're all comics, and I MC quite a lot of clubs, and I will happily include somebody who's disabled, black, you know, trans, whatever.
Very big of you.
It's good of me, isn't it? But what I've noticed from people who claim to have these ideological, you've got to be inclusive, you've got to be kind, will avoid people who are different to them in the audience and go, well, that's not being inclusive then, is it? You're not taking on board people's diversity. And the idea that we just keep trying to put square holes into round pegs, or round pegs into square holes, drives me mad.
Yeah, I mean, Lewis, you talk about wasting money. I mean, how much is the NHS spending on this initiative?
Well, I mean, what do you expect? It's a state. When you have the state in control of our healthcare, you're gonna spend money because you can't trust big government to save money. They try. It's also what does the NHS stand for? It stands for Team World.
National Health Service.
National Health Service,
That's what it stands for, but it doesn't stand for National Health Service. It stands for something bigger than that. They're all made up of nurses. I don't know. What is the point you want me to say, Josh? And I'll try to say it. The point is, it's the NHS.
The whole point of the question is about
Of course it's a waste of money. Our tax dollars go to... I'd rather have the NHS where we don't know how much our tax dollars go directly than pay £169.
You know what it's like, though? It's like, we have to acknowledge and have a training day about, you know, people who are trans or whatever. In the same way we have all those signs that say, we do not tolerate abuse of our staff. We never did. We never... we don't have to tell people to be...
Well, it's the problem.
Look at these people. We need to be nice. Yeah, we know.
Yeah, but of course, at the same time, it's also forcing us to sign up to an ideology that we might not believe in. They, them, or whatever. Right, our next question is from Jane. Hello, Jane.
Should transgender stories be shown in kids' TV shows?
Well, yes. So this is about, I think it's Netflix. No, it wasn't Netflix. It was Pixar. And they have cancelled an episode of one of their a TV series, a cartoon, where there was a trans character. It sort of seems amazing to me. I don't know, what do you think, Jane, that this was included in the first place for little kids?
I don't know.
Yeah, just a...
Sorry. I think it should depend also on their age and maybe if they want to ask questions to their parents to explain it.
Yeah.
And things like that.
No, I think you've hit the nail on the head. And I think the reason was, Lewis, they said that they were doing this was that it was up to the parents to raise these issues with their children. Is this a retreat? Because obviously Pixar's owned by Disney. Are we seeing this across the board now, that these companies are realising that they're losing money by pushing forward this ideology?
Well, this is something different because it's a private company. If they want to have trans or not trans, they can have trans or not trans. But we don't have to buy anything to do with Disney. And Disney right now is totally on the run. They see Donald Trump coming in. They've been beaten down by the Florida government, where Disney World is and the headquarters is. And so let them... Free speech. Let a private company do what they want to do. Let the state do nothing.
Well, this is it. But, I mean, some people might take this, I certainly do, as an optimistic sign that these companies, that it is actually the free markets that will solve part of this problem.
But actually, weirdly, I'm going to go contrary to this, there is nothing wrong with being different. You know, we can't just assume that there's men and women and, you know, that we're all straight. People are bisexual, people are homosexual, people do have body dysmorphia. There is nothing wrong with introducing the idea that you might feel a bit different to what is statistically the majority. So it's not but this is the difference. It's about forcing something, going, you've got to believe it's got to be like this, but also accepting that people do have different emotional, physical, sexual feelings. That's fine.
Yes, but Disney, you have to... That's the minor point.
Nice to see yourself.
Why is Disney taken this out because they know that everybody's watching Disney now for this kind of thing, and they're a bit fed up with Disney going too
When you say it's a
far.
minor point, that is actually the issue. It's about minors, and pushing this ideology on minors. That's the real risk.
It's also
right.
it's making you're doing it for the wrong reason, Disney.
But some
you're trying
parents
to make a
don't
point
mind
rather
this.
than just
Well, some people might, but some people don't. Right, next on
Just
Free Speech
encompass
Nation,
difference.
as 2024 draws to a close, so too is cancel culture. I'm going to be debating this next. See you in a second.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
Penelope's, which is situated in the sophisticated Hotel Armano in Covent Garden, delivers punchy dishes from the executive chef Fez Ozalgan. London-born, she's of Turkish Cypriot heritage, and at the tender age of 16, she enrolled at catering college. So, it's lovely to see you, Fez. Welcome to the programme.
Thank you.
So you're now in a very prestigious position. I'm always impressed that in the world of chefing, it's possible to get to very senior positions quite young, if you're good enough. Talent is rewarded, is it not?
Definitely, yeah. It does take a lot of hard work, for sure. But, yes.
When did you know that you wanted to be a chef?
Honestly, because my parents have a cafe in Barking. And I used to go there when I was younger, in school holidays and weekends to help them. And actually, I'll be honest, I just used to really admire everyone calling my dad chef, and that's what I wanted.
And what about your food inspirations? Because I believe the food that you produce now is what? Mediterranean influenced and also to some extent Middle East influenced?
Yeah, and Spanish as well, at Penelope's, yeah. So our concept at Penelope's, our CEO, Ariel, he is Israeli, but he grew up in Marbella. So, yeah.
These are the great influences.
Yeah.
What have you brought here today?
OK, so we have our sea bream tartare, which is a really good inspiration of both Spanish and Israeli. It's marinated with harissa, and it's served with a really nice gazpacho sauce, caviar on top.
I wonder whether the camera can see that. It is the most gorgeous coloured sauce on top of my sea bream tartare. That's marvellous.
GB News, the People's Channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
If you want your news to be straight talking...
This is the nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Free Speech Nation. Now, it seems that anyone and anything is at risk of being cancelled these days. But is cancel culture actually cancelling culture? Joining me now is Mark Tuggan, the founder of the Glee Comedy Clubs, and Jess DeWalls, an artist who was cancelled in 2021 for her artwork. Hello, Jess. Nice to see you. So, starting with you, Mark, what do you think? Do you think that cancel culture is over now? Have we progressed beyond that?
Well, I do think it's a good thing occasionally now that when there's an attempt to cancel somebody really big, like, as we all know, J.K. Rowling, Ricky Gervais, I think we've got to the point where there's a big national groan and a big national yawn. But to say that cancel culture is dead and buried, I think, is far too premature. If that was the case, then why are the free speech unions still hiring legally qualified caseworkers and still finding themselves taking on case after case after case? If that's also the case, why is Rosie Kay and Denise Fahy, why did they feel it was necessary to form an organisation just to protect free speech in the arts?
Yeah, I mean, Jess, you were famously cancelled a few years ago. Ironically, of course, it led to more of a bigger audience for your work, arguably. But that doesn't mean, of course, that you weren't cancelled or that other people whose story didn't become so public that they weren't affected.
Yeah, I quite agree. And I think it also is very different from person to person. I think some people that are maybe more like me or Rosie, I'm on Rosie's board, so I'm very familiar with that whole freedom in the arts situation too. And I just know far too many a name, particularly women, I have to say, but there's also men, who aren't wired the way that maybe I am and Rosie is, where we kind of push forward and go through and come out the other end and continue with our career. And that's not been easy for Rosie either. For me, it's slightly different because I am completely independent and I have private patrons, if you will. But there are many who aren't in a position like J.K. Rowling is, or Ricky Gervais, or any of the very, big names with big, deep pockets. That's not to say that they don't find that painful to go through either, but they have the finances to sort of weather the storm, if you will. And once you're in this whole fight, if you will, I think most people have realized you just got to go forward. And so there are so many people who sit, especially in like universities, arts organizations, who dare not say a word to this day because they just know they will lose their job, without a doubt.
It sounds like both of you are somewhat in agreement. This is based on a Telegraph article this week that came out that basically said, cancel culture's over because Dave Chappelle has sold loads of albums and is still super famous and successful. Mark, you actually book a cultural venue, the Glee comedy clubs across the country. Have you found there's been a change? I've certainly found when I do comedy nights, there has been a change within the audience. Do you think that there's, in terms of their willingness to kind of call out what they see as the negative aspects of cancel culture, and they're actually standing up for free speech, but do you think that that's true of bookers as well? Or are they still being cautious?
Oh, I think everybody's treading on eggshells at the moment. I mean, it was only last year that cancel culture came calling at my door in the form of the Jerry Sadowitz cancellation. You probably know he had an Edinburgh show. It got cancelled with no notice. We already had all his dates booked into our clubs. We had calls for him to be cancelled as well. We had staff complaints. It became an HR issue. We did go ahead with it, but it's, in my view, it's way too soon to call an end to the culture of cancellation. Before that, I mean, I've not talked about this much, but in 2019, are you familiar with the Dutch absurdist comedian Hans Tuin?
Yeah.
We had a fatwa. We got sent a fatwa straight to my inbox. I used Google Translate to translate it. Obviously, we spoke to the promoter, we spoke to the artist, we spoke to the police. We still went ahead with the gig, but. From that level right down to the fact that I'm dealing with, complaints about Saul Bernstein now, yes, there is still an attitude to call out jokes for little reason.
So, Jess, what do you think is the best way of dealing with these people? Is it just because it seems to be very much a minority? And do you think that it is when you take a stand like you did and that you are defiant, and as J.K. Rowling did, who we talked about earlier, that bravery then calls to bravery?
Yeah, 100%. It does for those in the position to actually speak up, because the reality is that there is a ton of people who just cannot. It's not as simple to say, why don't they just say it? They can see it. I think there's a lot of people who work in sort of just standard jobs. I'm an artist. I sort of, I find creative ways to work around it. If they try to cancel me, then I do something else, whatever. But there's a lot of people who don't have that flexibility at all. And so they sort of rely on those that can speak up. So 100%, I have spoken to women who ended up speaking up because I spoke up and they saw that and they saw, well, I just keep going. I think that the keep going part encourages other people to also speak up. But then, you know, I look at people like Graham Linehan and Andrew Doyle, who now left the country, kind of understandable because they can't work here, you know? So the idea that it's over, I think, and Graham Linehan is a very great and well-known screenwriter, you know, and he just couldn't get any work, and so he leaves. What does that say about, do you know what I mean? For some people, it works out really well. For me, it worked out great. For other people, it really doesn't, and he didn't do anything different, you know? And so as a general whole, I think it's really important to keep speaking out for those who can do that. But I don't think we're anywhere near the bottom of the pit, because there's so many people that came from the universities and they're now in positions of gatekeeping, especially in the arts. It's so sly, you know? They don't even have to, I think they've sort of clued up as well a little bit on you know, for me, it was a big hoo-ha, and that's what created the backlash. But actually, if they would have just said, do you know what, no, she's a TERF, you know, trans exclusionary radical feminist is the acronym for that. And so if they would have just been a bit smarter and done what now so many do, and just not take my merchandise anymore, and wouldn't have said a word. I could have never even said, look, I was cancelled or whatever, but so many times this happens, especially in the arts, where they just suddenly go, oh yeah, no, sorry, we're overbooked, or they just don't invite you, you know? And so then you don't even have proof.
It's a great
but
point,
you don't get
you're
jobs.
right. It's the insidiousness of it, and it is the inability to, as you say, to prove it. And of course, Graham Linehan and Andrew, that's a loss. Graham Linehan, one of the greatest comedy writers this country's ever produced, and now America gets him because of these, as you say, these gatekeepers. Well, thank you so much, both of you, for joining us. It's very much appreciated, and keep on fighting the good fight. There we go. Let's have a little round of applause for them. Don't go anywhere, because next on Free Speech Nation, we're having our big cultural roundup of 2024. See you in 2 minutes.
Hello, here's your latest weather update from the Met Office for GB News. As we go through the Christmas period, we'll see much milder weather affecting the UK. A lot of cloud around at times, giving outbreaks of rain, mainly towards the northwest, elsewhere largely dry. At the moment, we've got a chilly north to northwesterly airstream affecting the UK, tightly packed isobars, low pressure anchored there towards the northeast of the UK. And as we head through the evening and through the overnight period, we hold on to brisk winds, a gusty north to northwesterly airstream feeding further showers in from the northwest. The showers are a little bit wintry at times across the high ground in Scotland, with the best of the clear spells developing towards the south and east of the UK. And wherever you are, quite a chilly night. Temperatures down into mid to low single figures, perhaps locally dipping down to around freezing, giving a patchy frost in places, and the odd icy patch towards the northeast of the UK as well. As for Monday, well, we start the day with further wintry showers towards the northeast. The showers mainly wintry on the high ground in Scotland. Elsewhere across the country, some sunshine, with rain approaching the west coast there first thing on Monday. Outbreaks of rain also reaching much of Northern Ireland, but notice temperatures here a little bit milder than of late. And one or two showers across Wales, the far southwest of England, but elsewhere across the south and east of the UK, it's a fine, fairly chilly start. Fairly clear skies too, with plenty of sunshine developing as we go through the morning, and we hold on to lots of sunshine across those southern and eastern spots through the day on Monday, with cloudier skies, outbreaks of rain working their way in across many northern and western areas, a few heavy bursts of rain across Northern Ireland during the morning, pushing in across Irish Sea areas into the afternoon, and turning quite breezy once again after those winds have eased during the first part of Monday. Quite chilly towards the south and east at 5 or 6 degrees, but starting to turn milder out towards the west and northwest as we head into Christmas Eve, and much milder days on the cards across the UK. A lot of cloud around, turning breezy at times, some rain too, mainly towards the northwest, elsewhere mostly dry, some hill fog in places, but notice much milder temperatures than we've seen in recent days, temperatures into double figures, and we hold on to rather cloudy but very mild conditions going through the rest of the Christmas period, with temperatures up to around 12 or 13 degrees.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date. Or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together and what have we got, in my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Free Speech Nation. To help you prepare for the culture portion of your local pub quiz, we are taking a look back at the arts in 2024. Joining me now to discuss this is David Oldroyd-Bolt, historian and fellow at the Danube Institute. David, welcome. Here he is. Lots of culture this year. What are the highlights for you?
I'll start with the good things and let's go on to the bad. The very good things I saw this year, the Cliveden Literary Festival, which I think is the best literary festival in Britain now, and this year absolutely knocked it out of the park. The lineup, the quality of the speakers, the engagement of the topics was exemplary. Eugene Onegin at the Royal Opera House I thought was the best production of this year, both for the quality of the singing and also the quality of the dance. It's so important in Tchaikovsky that the dancers are just as good as the singers. And in this, for the first time in quite some years, they got it right there. Cool. The Proms had an exceptional season, if you strip out the things that are attempting to appeal to people, but in fact a lowest common denominator. Two highlights for me. One was Benjamin Grosvenor playing Busoni's Piano Concerto, a work that's extremely rarely programmed, and Sir Simon Rattle with the Bavarian Radio Symphony Orchestra playing Bruckner symphonies, which was a simply staggering experience. And then very recently we've had the two small exhibitions, one at the Imperial War Museum of cartoons about Churchill, which is a very small exhibition. It's only 2 rooms. You'll get round it in half an hour. It's free, and it's seriously good. And then last week, which I previewed on the last show, the Touchpoint Rural Art Exhibition. It was wonderful to see art about and by people from the country coming into London, getting a big audience, and I'm told that there are plans to do a really big show next year. So those were the great things.
What about the bad?
Now, well, the Labour Party manages to outdo itself for sheer pig-headedness, philistinism and idiocy at the very end of the year by stripping Latin out of state schools, which I think is one of the most purblind and, frankly, classist things they could possibly have done to the education system. It's a minuscule cost. It's £4 million a year that the state deigns to spend in trying to bridge this gap between the exceptional provision of all language tuition in the independent sector and the rather paltry provision in the state sector. Ancient languages are intrinsically important and interesting, not only for the linguistic content and the fact that, as so many people say in a utilitarian way, it means that you can learn French and Spanish and Italian more easily. Yes, you can, but that's not the point. The point is it connects you to most of European history. It was used as a diplomatic language up until the 18th century, is still used in the Vatican as an everyday language. It connects you to so much of the world's great literature. It enables you to walk into any church in most parts of the Western world and decipher what's going on. And I think it's just an extraordinary example of where Labour's managerialism and, as I say, class comes into play. And it means now that they're entrenching 2 groups of people in society. There are those for whom they have access to 2,500 years of history and who can rightly say, along with Horace, Illeterarum mihi praeter omnes angelus ridet. And there are those who don't, who will perhaps echo Virgil that tendem debanque in manus ripae ulteriors amore. And this is stupid. It's just straightforwardly stupid that the Labour Party, which is supposed to be for the betterment of people, of the working people of this country, is stripping out one of the most extraordinarily important aspects of cultural education. As I'm sure we will see with other aspects of the education system, we've already seen that they're going to reverse the academisation programme. We've already seen that they're attempting to water down the reforms of the curriculum and of the stringency of exams that were brought in under the previous 14 years of government, possibly the only fully worthwhile and commendable thing that those governments did in those times. I think it's a tragedy.
Yeah, I mean, the irony, of course, is that it keeps this subject as an elite subject.
Yes.
It does the opposite of what Labour is supposedly meant to do, which is to provide access for everybody.
Yeah, I mean, given that Latin is the language of Western civilization, quite straightforwardly. It was a language of the Roman Empire, and from the translation in the 4th century of St. Jerome of the Bible, it was the language of Christianity, which is the cultural inheritance with which you all live now, whether you like it or not. And to remove that, I think, just shows that they really don't understand what education is for. It is not a way of getting people to be in day centres from the age of 4 to 18 before they go and fulfil some job that the Labour Party deems necessary. The point of education is to develop the mind and connect us with the past as well as fitting us for the future. They simply don't understand this, and they think it's some kind of toss subject. Well, it damn well will be if they remove it at a cost. I think it's £4 million a year that it costs to provide Latin in the state system. I really hope that places like the West London Free School and its many offshoots, places like Michaela, the country's most successful school, which is a state school, continue to provide this and continue to show to the rest of the state sector that not only is this good for children in the straightforwardly utilitarian sense, it's good for them in the full sense.
Yeah, because what this £4 million paid for was partly towards the teachers' salaries, but also I believe it paid for access to going abroad.
Yes, and for the exams themselves.
Yeah, so we'll see. And of course, doing it in the middle of the school year is terrible
it's just
betrayal to students.
Oh, as I say, it's pig-headedly stupid.
So artistically, do you feel, are you conflicted to say bad things that you saw in the arts this year?
No, I think there were some bad things. Some of the problems, I say, it's the BBC still getting its knickers in a twist about trying to be accessible, when I would say that providing a month and a half of concerts at £7 a go is as accessible as you could possibly get. You don't need a Doctor Who prom. You don't need late-night rave proms, because those things are already well catered for. And I would enjoin Sam Jackson, the controller of Radio 3, to look again at the programming. There were some duds, I think, in Theatreland. I still think that the majority of the West End is overburdened with adaptations either of films or of bands' back catalogues. Too few producers are willing to fund original ideas. I'm just taking a look this afternoon at what's coming up next year in the West End, and you've got Mary Poppins and Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. Well, both wonderful films, which generations of children have enjoyed and will continue to enjoy. Do they need to be on a West End stage? Probably not. So I think the timorousness of the producers there, and I would say that anything to do with Arts Council England needs a really serious rethink, which unfortunately under Lisa Nandy it's unlikely to get, because she will pay no attention to it.
Yeah, I mean, do you think that the Labour government are going to drop the ball when it comes to the arts?
Well, they do, because their people are already in charge. It's one of the great failures of the Conservative administration over the past 14 years, was to do anything about the complete dominance in the arts sector of people of a leftish persuasion or outright Labour activists and donors. So the Labour Party doesn't need to do anything. They know they've got control of the sector, and they will leave it to their people.
Well, keep an eye on it. Personally, I was hoping you were going to mention the Superman trailer, because I thought that
was your job.
Well, that is my job. It's brilliant. I loved it. I'm so excited. Thank you so much for joining us, David.
Thank you, Josh.
There we go. Happy New Year. Merry Christmas. Next on Free Speech Nation is your unfiltered dilemmas plus social sensations, where we'll be looking at what's gone viral this week. See you in 2 minutes.
Dinner under the stars tonight?
That reminds me of our travel insurance.
You mean All Clear Skies?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
Hello there, welcome to your latest Winter Sun forecast. If you're travelling over the Christmas period, it's certainly going to remain unsettled for central parts of the Mediterranean. There's an area of low pressure brings some strong winds, some heavy rain and also some snow to the higher levels. Something a little bit quieter for parts of Iberia, plenty of sunshine to be had here, but then down towards the Canaries, still the risk of some showers, although it will improve here as we approach Christmas Day itself. Temperatures in Madeira reaching around 20 degrees on Christmas Day.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Now, our next guests have been working closely with celebrities and MPs to help clean up our planet.
Very important. Think Ocean was founded in 2021 with two main goals. One, educating the next generation to make sure that they know when they're growing up that naturally we have to take care of the planet and cleaning pollution that's already in the environment.
Well, joining us now to tell us more is Think Ocean's founder, Hugo Valdez-Vera, and the co-founder, Nolene Mariappan. Really good
Morning,
to see you both
Hi.
this morning. So, Nolene, let's start with you. What is Think Ocean and why did you want to start this back in 2021?
Yes, so Hugo had actually been working on the environment and climate action for quite a long time. When he moved to the UK, he realised that there was a growing problem with plastic pollution and that more needed to be done because people weren't actually seeing the link between plastic, the impact on the environment and climate change. So he founded the organisation and I joined him with three goals, really. Education, looking at technology to scale solutions, and looking at how we develop more circular economy programs. So actually looking at reusing, recycling, actually creating local economies from what people would consider waste.
Hugo, just how bad is plastic pollution around the world, and especially here in the UK?
Well, it is bad, but we don't know the extent of how bad it is. You know, this is not much interest from the bigger players or, some government for us to know every detail of the pollution. So if we know that is from 1 to 10 is 2, probably it's about 6.
Oh.
GB News, the People's Channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's time for Social Sensations, the part of the show where we look at what has been going viral this week on social media. First up, check this out.
Nike, why won't you stand up for me?
Why won't you stand up for me? Why won't you?
Why do you claim to support women and girls? Yet when we need you most, you remain silent.
Today, males are claiming our identity,
our sports,
our spaces.
Men and boys are stealing opportunities, medals, trophies, and our future.
It is not fair or just.
In fact, it's often dangerous.
Wow, it's very powerful. That's just a snippet of it. Jojo, it's amazing that they've made this video, they've put it out there. It's just such a challenge to Nike, who have betrayed women like so many have.
Well, it always feels like sort of bandwagoning. A lot of these huge corporations or brands just look at what everybody's saying on Twitter and then go, oh, this is what we need to do. And they do this thing with not realising what they're doing and betraying women. Is that Nike haven't ever really looked after a certain sector of society.
Well, I mean, you could argue that they have supported women's sports through the sponsorship of women previously, Lewis, but we're talking about biological women, whereas now over the last few years, they've stepped up and they've gone, oh, look, we're supporting women, but it's actually a man cheating
as a woman.
Where it's the very opposite of that.
There's a lot of pressure that's put on Nike.
I feel sorry for them.
Why do you feel sorry for them?
I was a joke. I don't know.
No, but you should feel sorry for them. They have to make people happy. It seems like everybody is supporting this trans thing. The fact is, if women didn't want trans to play in their sports, they wouldn't show up. There wouldn't be any...
Well, that's exactly what's happening, is that women aren't showing up.
And the thing is, they are supporting women because a lot of women are in favour of touchy-feely kind of things, and they don't want these trans women, who a lot of women consider trans women. They don't want their feelings hurt, but they could easily say, you know what, we're not, and they are doing that more and more. So it's not up to you, Josh, to say they're not supporting women. The women are changing their minds about this. Some of the women. It's not quite as simple as you think it is.
What was the lager brand or the beer brand Bud
Light,
that used a trans woman to represent women?
Their share sales went.
But this is what I'm talking about. This is a brand that's out of touch with what they think represents women. They think they're doing the right thing by women, whilst completely at the same time dishonouring and ignoring.
That's not necessarily true.
It is the point.
It isn't the point. The point is
brands are trying to get into the heads of women.
A lot of women historically have believed that trans women were women, so they didn't want to say, no, we don't think you should be in women. It might hurt their feelings. So it's way more complicated than you think it is. But at the end of the day, it's two teams, and the trans team is on the big Team World, you know, kumbaya, let's let anybody into the country.
Well, just getting way back to this video, I mean, it's heartening for me to see films like this made. It's gone out on social media, it's massive on Instagram, and you're seeing young women standing up for their rights. That's got to be heartening, right?
Yes, because as women, probably more emotionally attached or whatever, want to see if someone's a trans woman, be a trans woman. But this is where I have the argument. Trans women are trans women. Trans women are not women. And the idea that women are by default just being bullied out of their own space or ideas is so frustrating, and I'm surprised I even have this view.
Why are you telling women how to think? Let them decide.
No, I'm not telling...
You're saying my view of women is this way, and their view of women is wrong. And it's...
No, because it all comes back down to the fact that Nike or whoever, that is a male perspective telling women how they think. Women are constantly
And what is your perspective? You're telling them that women should not have accepted these trans women.
It's not about accepting...
You are telling them, let people decide.
Well, I think people have decided in this video. They make it very clear.
No,
they stand on
it's one of the first things.
Do you know who's worse at this? Women are the worst at this, because did you see there was a trans woman? Trans women are women, and somebody went up to interview and say, "Oh, well done for being a trans woman." She said, "Oh no, I'm not a trans woman." "Oh no, of course not. You're a woman." But she was a woman that was going, "Oh, but we know it's different."
That's the hypocrisy of it. Right, next up is this video. So that is all about Nike paying for women's sports. No. What do you think of that? That's the danger. You've got to watch out for those candles.
Do you know what? We've all made mistakes. It's that thing of just going, what? They're
having fun.
They're having fun. They're having a laugh. Yeah. Well, who was the Chris? Who was the guy that used to put a rocket up his bottom on stage? Chris somebody or other.
Chris Lynam.
Chris Lynam. Thank you very much. So, I mean, we've all done it. There's
maybe not intentionally.
Not intentionally, but it's like the old sort of 90s humour of eating Tabasco or setting a rocket up your bum.
Yeah. What do you think?
Some things never change.
Were you disappointed when you saw that it was actually a broom?
I saw it for what it was. It was what do you call that? A piece of art. It wasn't like it just happened to happen and they happened to be filming it. Is that this is part?
You are so. Is it Team World? Did they do a prank?
Well, it's them acting. They don't look like they're going to be defending us against Team World, so they have to be on maybe Team World.
Are we made to believe that was just spontaneous and it was?
I don't know. I don't want to bring out the great conspiracy theories. Right. Finally, let's look at this video. So that is the danger of doing any sport, I think. What do you think about that?
I'm not quite sure what happened there.
A dog ran across and I think tripped somebody up and
I think it was a deer. It was a deer.
There's a deer.
Has the deer been sued?
I don't know. We're going to find out. Hopefully, you'll some yummy food there. OK, we are going to go now to your unfiltered dilemmas. Our first dilemma is from Daniel. Let's say here. My roommate of 8 years is getting married next year and trying to kick me out the house. Is it exaggerated for me to end our friendship? What do you think there? Have we heard that?
So they've been housemates for 8 years. One of the housemates has now got himself into a relationship that has resulted in marriage.
Yeah.
The other housemate clearly hasn't copped on with anyone, and now he's upset. That's what that is, isn't it?
That is what that is, but do you have any advice for him?
Get over yourself.
Really?
Go on a singles dating night or something. Yeah. But then, isn't it quite odd? You've been sharing a house. Where is he going? He's not going to live with a new married couple, is he?
No, but I think sometimes that's what people do. I think there's nothing worse, Lewis, than relationships being ended by love.
Well...
Oh, he's not the right person
to ask. He should move out. I mean, I didn't make my kid move out when he came. And what can you do? He should fight against Team World. That's why there's not enough space in the country.
People need to move on.
I'm pretty amazed that you managed to somehow get it to that point.
There's always one question. I guarantee you, if there was plenty of housing out there for people to live in, that this would say, well, find a new place to live. But we're all thinking, oh, my God, we're living in London. There's no place to live because there's 1 billion immigrants coming into the country. And you have to blame Labour, Tory coalition for this. So I don't see...
No, you know what? You have a real magical skill at bringing it back to some something political there.
At the end, there's always one problem.
I got to be honest. This is a big deal. I've lost one of my best friends to being in a relationship. And I feel like in some ways you should be able to live with your best friend and their partner.
No, you shouldn't. Okay. You never should. You always, because we go through different variations of our life, that we all move on. We have to let go.
Fair enough. Right, our second dilemma is from Rory. My wife and I agreed that we weren't doing Christmas presents this year, but I found out she's got me one. What do I do? Oh, this is quite a personal... You're snorting there. Are you buying Christmas presents for your kids?
No, we do this thing where they're all grown up now, so we don't need anything. We do a Secret Santa 50 quid each, so we get one person to buy. But it's that thing where, have you ever been in that situation? Somebody will come to your house, oh, hi, oh, I brought you a present. You go... And you run upstairs and find something that is in your bedside cabinet and go, oh, and I got you something too. I'm not a big present giver. I just find it pointless.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, but for little kids and stuff, it's really...
Oh, no, yeah, when you're a child. But
when I say little kids, I mean in your 40s.
Adults buying me presents, I find slightly...
Cringy, really?
Yeah.
But not your partner. Come on. Lewis, what do you think? Is this why you got divorced?
I've never gotten a present.
Oh, stop your nonsense.
Saddest thing
ever. Oh, my God, let's go...
You obviously...
A GoFundMe for you.
Should never listen to a woman when they say stuff like that.
I don't know. I just think the thing is that there's a real danger here where you're going to get found out. This is the problem. Stick to the deal, whatever the deal is.
If the deal is that you buy each other presents, but how did it get to that situation? How was one person buying presents?
I think she was trying to catch him out, and it disgusts me.
She's awful.
Terrible, terrible. Get divorced. Right. Thank you very much for joining us for Free Speech Nation. This was the week when the UK was dubbed the Western capital of Sharia courts. Labour let trans people into single-sex spaces, and Disney ditched a trans storyline. Thank you very much to my panel, Lewis Schaefer and Jojo Sutherland, and of course to my brilliant guests this evening. Thank you so much, guys, for joining us. Merry Christmas. Give yourself a little round of applause.
Yay.
Well done. Look, you're coming out on a freezing night. Very much appreciated. And if you want to join us live in the studio and be part of our wonderful audience, you can. Please go to www.sroaudiences.com. And if you have a story, know about, or are going through something that you think should be covered on this show, please email us at freespeechnation@gbnews.uk. We also like cat photos. Stay tuned for the brilliant Ben Leo tonight. That's next. And don't forget that Headliners is on every night at 11 p.m. That's the late night paper preview show where comedians talk you through the next day's top stories. Thank you very much for watching Free Speech Nation. See you next time. Goodbye.
We can expect clear skies, leading to a light and warm day ahead. Lovely. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Oh, here's your latest weather update from the Met Office for GB News. As we go through the Christmas period, we'll see much milder weather affecting the UK. A lot of cloud around at times, giving outbreaks of rain, mainly towards the northwest, elsewhere largely dry. At the moment, we've got a chilly north to northwesterly airstream affecting the UK, tightly packed isobars, with low pressure anchored there towards the northeast of the UK. And as we head through the evening and through the overnight period, we hold on to brisk winds, a gusty north to northwesterly airstream feeding further showers in from the northwest. The showers are a little bit wintry at times across the high ground in Scotland, with the best of the clear spells developing towards the south and east of the UK. And wherever you are, quite a chilly night. Temperatures down into mid to low single figures, perhaps locally dipping down to around freezing, giving a patchy frost in places, and the odd icy patch towards the northeast of the UK as well. As for Monday, well, we start the day with further wintry showers towards the northeast. The showers mainly wintry on the high ground in Scotland. Elsewhere across the country, some sunshine, with rain approaching the west coast there first thing on Monday. Outbreaks of rain also reaching much of Northern Ireland, but notice temperatures here a little bit milder than of late. And one or two showers across Wales, the far southwest of England, but elsewhere across the south and east of the UK, it's a fine, fairly chilly start. Fairly clear skies too, with plenty of sunshine developing as we go through the morning. And we hold on to lots of sunshine across those southern and eastern spots through the day on Monday, with cloudier skies, outbreaks of rain working their way in across many northern and western areas. A few heavy bursts of rain across Northern Ireland during the morning, pushing in across Irish Sea areas into the afternoon. And only quite breezy once again after those winds have eased during the first part of Monday. Quite chilly towards the south and east at 5 or 6 degrees, but starting to turn milder out towards the west and northwest. As we head into Christmas Eve, and much milder days on the cards across the UK. A lot of cloud around, turning breezy at times. Some rain too, mainly towards the northwest, elsewhere mostly dry. Some hill fog in places, but notice much milder temperatures than we've seen in recent days. Temperatures into double figures, and we hold on to rather cloudy but very mild conditions going through the rest of the Christmas period, with temperatures up to around 12 or